Welcome to Astrodology, the podcast that brings you knowledge, wisdom, and principles that can help you find the peace and comfort we all seek and deserve in our lives. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Astrodology with Astrid. I hope you're doing well and feeling good. Tonight is another inspired episode, an evening episode for Relaxation and Learning. I was inspired by my friend Gina to create this nighttime series because she said my podcasts in general help her with relaxing and being able to fall asleep. She's even reported that sometimes in the middle of the night when she wakes up and she's unable to go back to sleep, just listening to one of my episodes has helped her. I'm so honored by this and would like to continue. Further, I realize that when we are moving into downturn in the day and we're starting to shut down for the evening, we're moving closer and closer towards theta. And theta is that time when we are receptive and information can actually sink into our brains. So I hope this helps you on your journey to more rest and digest and relaxation. Today I want to talk about manifestation. Manifestation is a big topic in our society these days for good reason. And I am definitely someone who pushes the narrative about manifestation. So I thought it was interesting because I know for myself, I go through periods where I feel that my negativity is causing my manifestation stations to not come to life. And as I'm reading and researching this topic, that may not be true. Now, there are some negative side effects to trying to manifest that I'll talk about shortly. But it's a fascinating world because manifesting, we do it all the time anyway. Our thoughts are very powerful, and we've got negative thoughts on lock. We know how to do it very, very well. And our mind is not our friend. Our brain is, but our mind is not our friend, and we have to learn that we have to override the mind. We have to become the master of the mind. And an analogy, the best one that I can give is children. Sometimes as parents, you feel like you have to tell the child the same thing thousands of times. And yes, you do, in order for it to sink in. Same thing with our minds. We have to virtually override the negativity, and for good cause. The brain has a good cause for not really listening to us too much. Unfortunately, we say things and we talk about things that we just don't bring to fruition. So then we become out of integrity. So after a while, the mind is like, yeah, right, they're not going to follow through. I've heard this before. So just know that as wicked and wild as it seems that there's a part of us that's not for us, it exists. Numerous studies have proven this, that we need to override the natural tendency of our mind. And that is because of how we've been conditioned. Our well-meaning parents, teachers, colleagues, all of the experiences that we go through with other people on the planet. And for some reason, our mind loves to hold on to the fear-based stuff more than the love-based stuff. So this is the time, I'm recording this in May, and I thought about the holidays, the high holidays with Hanukkah, with Kwanzaa, with Christmas. We go into a very high period of spending and celebrating. And in our modern times, this celebration starts probably in Thanksgiving in November and truly doesn't end until February with President's Day. We're seeing more and more people extend their New Year's return to work into maybe the second week in January. So there's heightened spending and indulgences that go on. But inevitably, when spring season starts to hit, probably around the end of March, people start to think about tax season. Tax season, we know, comes every April. It gives us a feeling of anxiety because will I owe, how much will I owe, etc., etc. So these mounting bills and excess and spending from enjoying the holidays starts to wear on us. And we start to have a feeling of, do we have enough? And then coupled with a whole host of worldly issues that are going around, interest rates and things like that, that add to our worries about money. Even for the most zen and spiritual of us all, financial stress is a universal, malady for us all. Financial stress can seep into every area of our lives. But beneath the surface of all of the fear and all of that, there is a deeper psycho-spiritual terrain that we can tap into when we practice manifestation. But our ancestral wounds, depending on our cultures, a lot of indigenous cultures, African cultures, and people of color, immigrants, have scarcity issues, worthiness issues, and we could be triggered by this at any time. We all have natural primal fears that are etched in our collective psyche, but now more than ever during this time-space reality that we're living in this economic landscape where we are witnessing people not having enough. Since the pandemic of 2020, there are people that still have not recovered, and they may not ever recover, particularly those that are in marginalized communities. Things are reaching an all-time high financially, to the point, as we sit here in 2025, even millionaires are worried about money. So the idea is our financial worries have to do more with spiritual things as well. I take an example from the AA programs, whether it's Alcoholics Anonymous, addiction, excessive spending, Debtors Anonymous, and so forth. And the reason these programs work, it is said, because there is a psycho-spiritual root to the program. As it turns out, releasing and letting God is a spiritual faculty that being surrounded by like-minded others with the same mindset is why people change, is why things change and turn. So sometimes our financial anxiety is important because there are times we have to be practical. But when we look into our bank accounts and we see insufficient dollars to cover the expenses, it can bring a surge of anxiety and concern through our whole central nervous system. Scarcity consciousness is real. When our resources run low and we don't have enough, the issue is real, the concern is real. And these tie back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If your baseline ability to have shelter and food are compromised, it's going to be hard to be positive. It's going to be hard to manifest when you're in the lower frequency of the basics of life. Vulnerability, death, things like this, especially when someone commits suicide because of financial concerns and issues. So just know that we have this deep-rooted, embedded fight or flight inside of our bodies from our ancestors. So our ancestors had to practice more hypervigilance, and they had to stay more alert and alive, or more alert to the circumstances, because they really did have wild animals that might attack them in the middle of the night. So even though we don't face, as they call, the saber-toothed tiger period, our brains still respond to our modern forms of scarcity, such as an empty bank account, losing a job, worried about job security, or even a big one nowadays is social rejection. So it sets off this primal alarm system within us. So the fight or flight response kicks in and it floods our bodies with stress hormones. And when we get flooded with stress hormones, it narrows down our thinking. This is when we might get an anxiety attack, spiral into fear, and hoard resources. And from this flooded space of reactivity, we make oftentimes less than stellar choices. Scarcity consciousness is a psychological mindset with a physiological pattern. It evolved for protection, but in our modern days, it can keep us stuck in fear, even when the actual danger has passed. We see this with people who grow up poor and with scarcity, and they make it. They more than make it. They have more money than they could ever imagine. And instead of enjoying it, they hoard and they worry about keeping it. They worry about losing it. I love this article. I'm going to do an excerpt from an article called modernmanifestation.com. Because she talks about, do negative thoughts and emotions, are they bad for what we're trying to manifest? I read from her excerpt, modernmanifestation.com. Negative thoughts and emotions aren't bad, but we've turned them into the bad guy. So much so that the fear and anxiety we have around negative thoughts and emotions are doing a lot of us more harm than good, and that creates resistance. But our negative thoughts aren't the villain in our story. They're feedback. They could be feedback that you're stuck in a trauma loop, that you need to make changes, that you need to set boundaries, that you need a break, that you need to focus on self-care, or any other number of things. Our negative thoughts give us information. When we stress out about our stress, we perpetuate our fear and allow it to compound. Work stress turns into fear that you're impacting your ability to manifest. And then you're mad at yourself for letting this happen. And then the scenario snowballs into a really big issue when initially you were only stressed out about work. Stress is okay. Anxiety is okay. Even the healthiest and happiest people in the world deal with these emotions. Stress is not going to keep you from having the life that you want. So don't worry about the negative thoughts and emotions. That's just creating more resistance. Our negative thoughts aren't the villain in the story. They are feedback. So I love that the negative information, and it's so true. Our bodies are so smart that it keeps sending us signals and information for us to pay attention to. We can use this information to make healthy changes towards the manifestation that we want to create. And over time, as I said earlier, the more we override these negative things that pop up, after, I should put in here, after we've investigated the validity, because like that thought said, they could be valid in forcing us or reminding us that we need rest, we need to stop, and we need to refresh ourselves. We don't need to fear our stress or negativity. And what we need to understand is that when it gets to the level that it's greatly affecting our mental health, that is when we're having a problem. Maybe we then take the information that's coming up and take a day of rest. I remember my Aunt Velma she would call in to work, and I said, "Oh, you called in sick?" And she says, "No, girl, I took a wellness day." And maybe you decide you need to just piss off or play hooky for an entire weekend. And all of this will lead to valuable information. Sometimes negative thoughts and emotions can just be a habitual pattern that we've created. So again, the mind works well with repetition. That's why positive repetition and positive reinforcement helps us. So self-correcting and choosing to rephrase our thoughts in a more positive way can be very helpful. For many years, we can get stuck in a pessimistic attitude or a cycle of negativity. Again, these time frames are normal. What's not normal is that it continues and that we can never get out of that loop. So if you find yourself falling into this pattern, you can self-correct and just rephrase the thought. I know there's a term that you put it in the pink bubble and you retract it and put it in the pink bubble so it can float away out of your mind. Because again, the mind sits and waits to say, "Aha, I told you so," or "I knew it." It can be very, very nice to get rid of old habits that don't serve us. What a release of pressure it is. And we can embrace our negative thoughts and still be a healthy manifester. Because negative thoughts will always visit us. They will always be around. All we have to do is notice when they do and then respect them, because everything is energy. So positive thoughts, negative thoughts, midline thoughts, neutral thoughts all have validity. So the question we need to ask ourselves, what is this negative thought trying to tell me? Is there any relevant information that I could learn from them, that I could garner from them? Maybe the negative information is trying to help me change directions. And maybe moving and listening to the negative feedback will help get us closer to what we do want. So our negative thoughts can be helpful in the process of trying to manifest. It could be telling us or screaming to us that we need a break, that we need to soothe our nervous system. How about we need to set a boundary? And sometimes we just need to sit in it. We just need to sit in the present moment of that dark spell or moment. So the idea is not to ignore these negative thoughts and emotions, because they're either telling us something or they want to be acknowledged. This is kind of a meditation principle. When you first start meditating, as a new meditator in particular, lots of thoughts and negativity can come up. But the idea is it's coming up so that it can come up and pass through and out of your body. It's healthy. It's not unhealthy to experience negative thoughts and emotions when they come. We must trust the wisdom of our higher selves in our minds, and understanding that suppressing or repressing these feelings only help mask the situation. And then we go into self-doubt and we go into self-deprecation. And these are the things that stops us from manifesting. So when it comes to manifestation, don't fear negative thoughts and emotions, because they really won't dramatically impact your life as long as we deal with them in a healthy and appropriate, and I should add, swift way. It's natural to have the yin and yang of life. So the more holistic that we become, we are comprised of all the energies. And the more we allow ourselves grace for that, then we will have manifestation. And when we're ready to move on, we'll know it. We won't have to worry or wander, because our emotions are a gift. They're a gift from God that we get to emote and feel. But here is the truth, and here is the deep, rich truth. Our positive thoughts are much more powerful than anything we could negatively think. They vibrate so much higher, and they take us to a very high frequency. So when you're ready, you will immediately be right back on track to manifesting your goals. Your negative emotions will not cost you your dreams, I assure you, or your wishes, as long as you're working through them. Now, there is a link between manifestation and mental health issues, because social media, people winning things and starting a business with $100 and becoming millionaires is becoming a strong and powerful narrative. So if you're not creating and manifesting to that level, it can create mental health issues. Let's talk about them. Toxic positivity. Attempting to stay positive all the time and focus only on positive thoughts can invade your true feelings, which usually include negative emotions and thoughts as well as positive thinking. Suppressing painful or difficult feelings and thoughts can lead to increases in the negative thinking, which in turn can exacerbate or catalyze mental health issues. Self-blame. Positive manifestation teaches us that we are entirely in control of what happens in our lives. This is not true. So therefore, if something bad does happen, we decide that it must be our fault. This just is not true. We do have personal responsibility, and personal responsibility is real. We cannot control everything that happens to us, and blaming ourselves for things that don't work out the way we wanted them just makes us feel worse. This stems from a lack of self-compassion, and that will correlate and lead to poor mental health. Aggravated OCD symptoms. Manifestation and OCD are particularly a bad combination. Studies show that people with OCD are more likely to believe that having negative emotions and negative thoughts will make something negative happen. And as a result, they use rituals or compulsive behaviors as ways to control, to hold on to, or ward off bad things. Believing that our thoughts are truth. This goes back to the idea that the mind is not our friend. If we're thinking we're being judged by others and that we aren't lovable or no one loves or cares about us, and that in quotes, bad things will always happen for us, the law of attraction tells us that these things are true. This law of attraction theory can make people have social anxiety, depression, and other mental health issues. A setup for failure. The law of attraction, in particular, teaches that we achieve our desires and dreams through our thinking and through how we're feeling without taking concrete and practical steps to get there. This magical thinking sets us up for failure and disappointment, and it can lead to poor self-esteem, which is an underlying cause of mental health concerns. Having a positive attitude absolutely can make us feel happier and healthier. But focusing only on the positive, will that help you reach your goals and dreams and have a better life? Yes, research shows that having a positive effect with your words and your actions, in other words, frequently experiencing positive emotions, is associated with success in various aspects of life, including work, health, and relationships. Happy people, statistically, experience more good things in life, but it is also possible that happy people naturally tend to focus on the good things around them. they're creating their positive experience in a sense that they are noticing and appreciating them. So the idea is when a negative thought comes up, get in the habit of investigating it and see what it is trying to tell you. The thought is, in every bad or negative situation, there is some good. We just have to find it. So if you stub your toe, we might say, gosh, it's painful, it hurts, and we're upset that it happened. But turning into a positive spin, you could say, thank goodness I only banged it and bruised it. While I could have broken it, it would have been far worse. So intentions are a powerful way to move towards manifestation. This is why we hear, set your intentions. What is your intention? So we have an intention to do something well and do it good. The idea is intention allows for fluidity and it allows for bouncing back. It allows for us to pivot. We can wake up every single day and keep working towards our intentions. Intentions set the stage for positive growth and change because we're making a choice to pay attention to the things that we deem worthy. I hope this topic on manifestation has helped you and the power of our thoughts and how it affects manifestation. I believe that manifestation is real, and after doing more research, I was guilty of believing that if I had a day that I felt down or sad or negative, that, oh well, there goes my manifestation. I'm going to have to start all over again. But it doesn't make any sense. We're not that powerful. And at the end of the day, good always prevails, especially when it's coming from a place of love. So even though I said our mind is not our friend, it is a part of who we are. So treat your mind like a child, an infant that you're teaching the pathway to adulthood, where you would have the patience, where you would have the care about their welfare because you know that they don't know, you know that they don't understand. Treat your mind like an unruly child that you are teaching manners and good habits, etc., etc., etc. Thank you so much for tuning in. Sleep tight. Namaste. Thank you for listening to Astrodology. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help support the podcast, please hit the subscribe button and tell your friends about it by sharing this program on social media. You can also follow me on Instagram at Coda Life Goddess or at CodaLife.com. Coda is C-O-T-A, Coda Life Goddess or CodaLife.com. Thank you again for listening to Astrodology, and I'll see you next time.